today I want to cover ghosting. And if you've been online dating or not even online, just dating in general, it's very likely that you have experienced this extremely painful and frustrating scenario. And I will be the first to say that I have been ghosted numerous times, and clients that I have worked with have also experienced ghosting. And I want to speak about some points that I notice in all of these experiences, some common themes, and we're going to cover the root cause behind why you keep attracting the same scenario into your life. Maybe it's happened once. Maybe it's happened several times. Maybe when you're honest with yourself, every person you date seems to not have enough time for you, has commitment issues, is essentially emotionally unavailable. We're going to talk about the root reason behind this pattern. I'm going to cover a controversial point that might piss you off or ruffle your tail feathers, but I invite you to hear me out. And then I'm going to also speak about what you can do, the starting steps to take to begin breaking this cycle. So the first thing that I invite you to consider is that being ghosted isn't the real problem. It's just a symptom of something deeper, a symptom of a root issue that you haven't yet overcome completely. You might have had a lot of therapy. You might be listening to podcasts like this. You might be getting a lot of insights, but there's still something in you subconsciously or in your nervous system and in your behaviors that you've adopted that are continuing to attract the same unavailable type of person. Successful women who are driven, who have achieved things in their careers, who consider themselves go-getters, these types of women specifically have an underlying psychological makeup that makes them more prone to manipulators, narcissistic types, and emotionally unavailable people. And that at the root of that psychological makeup is a subconscious belief that she is not enough. Some of that belief might have come from your upbringing. Maybe you were raised by a narcissistic parent or an emotionally invalidating parent. Maybe you had to compete with a sibling who got a lot of attention. Maybe you had to compete with a parent who got a lot of attention. When we're young, we don't have a filter on having executive functioning in our brain. That part of our brain isn't fully developed yet. And we're operating in what are called theta brainwaves and alpha brainwaves, which are slower brainwaves from the ages of 2 to 9 years old. So things that you experience in your childhood leave a lasting impression on how you feel about yourself and what you believe about yourself. That being said, you could have had a glorious childhood, a healthy childhood, and still find yourself in this scenario. And I'll cover why that is in just a second. But a lot of the times, most of the times, there's a fundamental subconscious, meaning you're not fully aware of it, that you are lacking in some area. And in order to compensate for that feeling, that subconscious belief of not being enough, we adopt behaviors to help us overcome that belief. Meaning we decide to double major in college. We decide to get on the dean's list. We decide to apply for the internship at the most prestigious company. We decide to climb the ranks in our career. We decide to have 3 or 4 different side hustles going on. We do it all, right? And that's a noble thing. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But we want to also pay attention to the belief system that may be driving that behavior. So let's say you had a glorious childhood and your childhood wasn't at all dysfunctional and you don't identify as somebody who had a traumatic childhood, and you also find yourself attracting emotionally unavailable partners over and over and over again. The reason that could be happening to you is also because women who are driven and successful have past experiences, whether it's in their career, whether it's with their education, whether it's with raising kids, that if they just work hard enough, they will reach their goal. They have learned and have past references that hard work eventually pays off. And if that's worked in your career, in your education, with your family, why wouldn't that work in dating? And it especially can be a really big hook and get you trapped in this cycle of thinking, especially if the person that you met who ghosted you or who was emotionally unavailable, especially if you had a lot of chemistry together, that chemistry, that initial feeling like you finally met somebody that you feel aligned with, you've got a good vibe with, that can be very seductive. This is also highly indicative, especially if you have childhood trauma, that intense chemistry, that intense connection that you have with somebody is really a trauma response and not actually an authentic, healthy emotional connection with somebody. So past experiences in your childhood can lead you to subconsciously take on the belief, and again, you're not aware that it's happening when you're believing it, that you're not enough, and that belief system will cause you to overcompensate and do more and do more and do more. The second contributing factor is believing that with enough hard work, you will eventually meet your outcomes. And that has worked possibly for your career in other areas of your life, but you may be knowingly or unknowingly adopting that same belief system in your love life and feeling like you are overgiving and doing too much and being overly emotionally invested in something or someone. You've built a fantasy around what you could be together and consistently wind up feeling rejected, disappointed, disheartened. The third contributing factor that I want to highlight here are specifically around why successful women find themselves repeating these patterns with unavailable men, or maybe you just got ghosted again, is another deeper layer called abandonment anxiety. And again, this can go back to childhood stuff. This can also show up in your career. Maybe you've worked really hard. You've learned that hard work equals people liking you. You've learned that hard work and achieving things equals people praising you and being loved and feeling accepted. The two most fundamental human needs that we all tend to get addicted to and all strive for are feeling like we belong and feeling like we are accepted. And we all have behaviors that we do consciously or unconsciously that can be unhealthy in how we receive that feeling of belonging and acceptance. So if you have had some experiences in childhood where you were left or somebody didn't show up for you, maybe this has happened in a marriage. You were married to somebody for 20 years. You walked down the aisle in your gut knowing that it was the wrong thing to do, but you rationalized and convinced yourself that it was the right thing to do. And it was what a good woman like you does. You honor your commitment. That experience of an unfulfilling marriage can also cause you to have abandonment anxiety. So this psychological makeup of subconscious beliefs, I'm not enough, abandonment fears, coupled with, if I just work hard enough, I'll get my outcome, is like a Molotov cocktail when it comes to your love life. The second point that I want to make that may upset you a little bit is that it's truly never really about somebody ghosting you. 99% of the time, if you are honest with yourself, and I had to look at my own patterns as well and be completely honest with myself, is that if you look at the early interactions you had with a person that ghosted you, there were likely signs of inconsistency, something not quite adding up, hot and cold behavior, things that just didn't feel right. And maybe you had a lot of intense chemistry, but that intense chemistry was coupled with like, I don't really know about this. Those early signs are indicators that your body your intuition is receiving signals from this person, and those signals need to be paid attention to. So at the end of the day, it's really not about somebody else ghosting you. It's more about, are you ghosting yourself by ignoring those intuitive hits? Whenever we are dating and whenever we're out and about in the world and in relationships, specifically romantic relationship, it is never about we get what we want. We get what we tolerate. We get what we settle for. And I learned this from one of my mentors. If you are ignoring small inconsistencies and you're letting things slide early on, and it's important to remember that people are going to show you who they are, and it doesn't take a lot of time for that to happen. The true test and the question is, can you receive those signals, trust yourself, and then take aligned action with what you want? And if you still believe in dating that you're not good enough, you're going to be more likely to ignore those intuitive hits and settle. So everything that we receive in life is, especially in dating, is really a mirror of what we believe. If you believe that you're not good enough, if you believe that you have to work hard in order to reach outcomes, if you believe secretly that because you're over 40 or over 50, or because you've never had a healthy relationship, that you in particular, you have to work harder than everybody else, then that's what you're going to create in your life. And you'll continue running into these scenarios where life is giving you, the universe is giving you people and situations that match what you believe. And in order to shift this, you have to start looking at yourself. A lot of people, the first response when they get ghosted, and it was certainly the response for me, why is this happening to me again? Why did this, what's wrong with me? What did I do wrong, right? We go down that road of, did I do something wrong? Is there something wrong with me? Am I like, do I have loser written all over my face and I can't see it? We tend to blame ourselves. We tend to shame ourselves, and we remain the victim. And that's normal, right? The victim stage is the first stage, the early stages of healing, but we don't want to stay there. We want to look at, what was it? What can I learn here? What was it that I picked up on early that I didn't pay attention to? What caused me? What was it? What was my reasoning behind ignoring that red flag? What was I telling myself to justify why it was okay to ignore that red flag versus having a conversation and addressing it, or simply making a decision based on what I need, not what is better for them? The other thing that I want to mention here is that if you've had a lot of, let's say you've had a lot of therapy, you've talked about this a lot ad nauseum, you've talked it all out a lot, and you've been listening to things and you're like, yeah, I get that. There's a big difference between logically understanding something and embodying it. Embodying it means and requires getting way out of your comfort zone. Embodying having a healthy relationship, if you really want to have a happy, stressful, less stress-inducing dating experience and ultimately attract a healthy relationship, the first thing that you need to realize is that your body has light, especially if you've attracted narcissistic partners and people who blow hot and cold. Your body and your nervous system, whether you like it or not, has learned to associate love with feeling anxious, with feeling like you're walking on eggshells. I have a client who spent many years in her marriage silencing her voice just so that whatever her husband needed. And every time she did that, it produced a feeling of anxiety. Well, that marriage inevitably fell apart, and not in a happy or healthy way at all. It became increasingly worse. And her brain and her body just subconsciously began associating intimate relationship with anxiety. Intimate relationship equals anxiety. And if I'm not feeling anxious, that means that this isn't really a romantic partner for me. I'm not really interested. So what happened when she decided to date again, she did therapy, she worked on herself, she did all of the right things. When she got back out into the dating world, she was only attracting people who didn't have time for her. And this showed up as they were inconsistent. They would take hours or sometimes days to respond to a text. They would say they were going to ask her out and then they wouldn't ask her out. And so it was this constant back and forth. Well, guess what she felt? Anxiety. But because her body had been used to feeling anxiety in romantic relationships, she stuck it out. She did what she did in her marriage. She convinced herself, well, this is what a good wife does. These are my duties. This is my commitment. She basically did the same self-convincing and justifications that she did to stay in an unhappy marriage. And she did that in dating. Well, he's probably just busy making excuses for somebody. And all the while, she was feeling on edge all the time, but she was feeling on edge to a point where it was normal for her. In fact, it was like uncomfortable for her to feel relaxed. So your body has likely programmed that relationships and love look like silencing yourself. They feel like anxiety. They feel like you can't be fully who you are. And if that's the template that you've been living, then that's what you're going to receive in dating. And if you've experienced, especially narcissistic abuse, this is a form of trauma. Betrayal, having a partner cheat on you, is a form of trauma. A lot of people don't think that that's traumatic, but it is. And it's like getting into a car accident. You get into a car accident, it's traumatizing. Maybe you don't want to drive for a while. Maybe you avoid at all costs driving by the location of the accident. It's fear. It's a fear-based response. It's trying to protect you. And the same thing happens in our love lives. And the longer you continue, especially if you're over 40, the longer you continue operating with this template, the more disappointment you encounter, the more negative, painful circumstances you encounter, and the more you start believing something's wrong with me, I'm not enough, and it just creates this vicious cycle. So the first step in breaking that is, number one, realizing that you can't keep doing this anymore. A lot of us wait, and this is my own experience as well, until things get really, 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 really bad before we decide that we're ready. I'm finally ready to quit this relationship. I'm finally ready to stop feeling alone and being lonely every weekend. I'm finally ready to focus on myself. Maybe you are a recent empty nester. Maybe you just got ghosted again after really believing this person was the right one. Like, it takes some type of a really painful circumstance to wake us up and to motivate us to change our ways. So that's the first step, is being 100% ready to change your ways. The reason behind that motivation is that there's a hidden benefit in continuing to date unavailable people and continuing to date and experience disappointment. And that is, you never truly get to share yourself intimately on an emotional level with somebody. Dating unavailable people who blow hot and cold, who are inconsistent, there's safety in that, because there's no way that you would ever be able to be vulnerable truly and truly have an emotionally intimate relationship. Emotional intimacy is terrifying for many, many people, but that's the space that magic happens. That's where you create that connection. That's where you learn the most about yourself. That's where a lot of your stuff comes up that you get to overcome in the moment. So you have to be ready to truly let love in. And this doesn't necessarily just mean about attracting a partner. Letting love in means learning to feel in love with your life and truly in love with yourself on a daily basis. Yes, you're going to have bad days. Yes, life's going to happen. Yes, shit's going to blow up and you're going to have to deal with it. But when you're operating in your life from a place of trust, you trust yourself, from love, from gratitude, from a sense of happiness and contentment, and you're trusting and you're taking risks in your life, that emotional state when challenges do happen, you are going to get through them a lot easier and with less emotional suffering than you might be experiencing now. So using methods that are specifically proven and are specifically designed for healing relationship trauma, such as narcissistic abuse. I use here somatic therapy, internal family systems, and trauma-informed coaching. And that whole world is less about talking about what happened to you in your past and reanalyzing it, and more about helping you retrain your body and your subconscious programming that it's safe to love, that love doesn't have to be anxiety provoking, that you can be with somebody who doesn't make you walk on eggshells and still find that person attractive and still feel a spark. So if you're interested, maybe you're watching this and maybe you were recently ghosted, maybe you've been out of the dating world for a while because of an unfortunate situation. Maybe somebody ghosted you a year ago and you haven't been on a date since. And there's a call in your heart that you want to open yourself up to somebody. First of all, you just want to feel happy every single day. Forget about the guy. That's like not the main priority. You want to be right with yourself. You want to have truly a healthy relationship and know what it feels like to love yourself. Then I have a free masterclass that will help you take the first step in making that a reality. And in that masterclass, I'm going to help you uncover the specific patterns and beliefs that you may be operating with that have caused you to find yourself in unfulfilling romantic relationships, and the 5 specific steps that need to be taken on a consistent basis in order for you to break that cycle. You can find that at bethanydotson.com/masterclass. And then if you are a single career-driven woman over the age of 40, and maybe you've recently been divorced, maybe you recently experienced another heartbreak after doing all of the right things. Maybe it's been years since you've been on a date, and every single morning you wake up with just this dull sense of dread and you just feel stuck in your life. Even though your life looks great on paper, there's just something you're not fulfilled. Then I invite you to book a free breakthrough session, and you can do that at bethanydotson.com/talk. The intention of that call is 2 parts. Number 1, to facilitate a breakthrough for you on what's really holding you back, and most importantly, what you really, really want. A lot of the women that I work with know what they don't want, and they're extremely clear on that. They know that they can eat it, drink it, sleep. They know it like the back of their hand. What they are really unclear on is what they do really, really want. So that call is also designed to stretch you and stretch your belief on what's possible for you by gaining clarity on what it is that you truly, truly want. And then the second intention of that call is to discover if we are a good aligned fit to work together, and if I can help you actually achieve the outcomes in your life and in your love life as well. A few qualifications for this call. Every other area of your life is pretty good. You've got career's going good, family life is going good. You're okay with your ex. Maybe you co-parent with a narcissistic spouse. It's not great, but it's also not horrible either. You've already had therapy. You've already tried things on your own to help yourself get unstuck, but you're still feeling stuck. You're still you're not necessarily circling the drain stuck, but you're just I'm tired of living like this. I think that's about it. Oh, final qualification. Preferably you're single. If you're dating somebody that is unavailable, you need to be willing to put that on pause or make some important decisions that are honoring for yourself in that relationship. So again, bethanydotson.com/talk if you're interested in booking a breakthrough session. And if you'd like more information on the patterns that you hold and the steps needed to take, then go to bethanydotson.com/masterclass for that free 45-minute training. Thank you so much. And I look forward to being with you here next week. Take care.